When historian Bruce Catton discovered a military report lost for 90 years, he never imagined that those 3 handwritten pages would reveal the most explosive secret about Ulysses S. Grant. For more than 30 years, Catton had studied every battle, every decision, and every moment of the Civil War. But it wasn't until he held that document dated April 2, 1865, a telegram of just 87 words sent at 2:27 p.m., that his life as a historian was changed forever. What Catton discovered wasn't just about the fall of Petersburg. It was definitive proof that Grant possessed something no other general in American history had ever demonstrated, and it all happened in exactly 25 minutes that defined not only the end of the Civil War but the entire essence of American leadership. This revolutionary discovery would change not just military history, but our understanding of what makes someone truly unstoppable. In 25 minutes, Grant didn't just conquer Richmond, he redefined what it means to never accept defeat. Bruce Catton was never just a historian, he was an obsessive detective. For decades he pursued a question that kept him up at night. What truly made Grant different from all the other Union generals? Catton realized that until that point, all of Grant's biographers had focused on the big victories, like Vicksburg and Appomattox. But then he had a revolutionary thought. Great revelations about leadership don't happen in moments of triumph. They happen in moments of absolute decision. For years, Catton had followed in the footsteps of other historians, analyzing the same famous battles and well-known speeches. But he knew he was missing something crucial, something that would explain why Grant succeeded where McClellan, Burnside, and Hooker had failed. His obsession began when, as a young journalist in Michigan, he spoke with veterans who had served under Grant. He was different from the other generals, they would say. When Grant decided something, you knew it was going to happen. From then on, Catton dedicated his life to finding out exactly what made Grant so relentless. For 3 decades, Catton visited every battlefield, read every letter, and examined every military report. He had written Mr. Lincoln's Army, and won the Pulitzer Prize with A Stillness at Appomattox. But the central piece of the puzzle remained hidden. Catton's journey through the National Archives had stretched on for more than 2 decades. He examined thousands of documents, but they all told the same story. He almost gave up. It was on March 17, 1963, when Catton discovered that telegram. He had spent the entire day at the National Archives. His hands were dusty, his eyes were tired, but something about that yellow document magnetically caught his attention. It was poorly catalogued, almost lost, but the header caught his eye. Urgent telegram, General Grant to Sec. Stanton, April 2, 1865, 2:27 p.m. to 2:52 p.m. Catton read that line and felt his heart race. 25 minutes. In his entire career, he had never found a record so specific to such a short period of time. Most military reports spoke in hours, days, weeks. But this one spoke in precise minutes. The telegram began simply. Secretary Stanton, 2:27 p.m. Petersburg evacuated. Richmond in panic. Pursuit initiated. Lee in full retreat. Confederate resistance collapsed in 25 minutes of coordinated pressure. That night, Catton couldn't sleep. He knew he had found something extraordinary. During his research, Catton realized that those 25 minutes at Petersburg weren't just another engagement. They were the exact moment Grant demonstrated his definitive strategic genius. To understand what Catton discovered, we need to go back to that morning of April 2, 1865. The siege of Petersburg had lasted 292 days. Lee was desperate, Grant was determined, but no one expected everything to fall apart in less than half an hour. At 2:27 p.m., according to the telegram Catton held in his hands, Grant received a report that the Confederate lines at Petersburg were showing signs of weakness. It was information any cautious general would have investigated for hours before acting. But Catton discovered that in that moment of opportunity, Grant did something that changed not just that battle, but the entire war. He didn't hesitate. At 2:28 p.m., just 1 minute after receiving the report, he gave an order that his own officers considered too risky, an immediate all-out attack across the entire line. Catton immediately realized that this order wasn't just military. It was psychological. Grant was betting everything on something few generals had tried, turning a possibility into a victory through the absolute speed of decision. Catton understood that those 25 minutes revealed Grant's true genius. It wasn't his courage. It was his revolutionary understanding that in war, The speed of a decision is more powerful than the perfection of a plan. If you act while the enemy is still thinking, you gain a decisive psychological advantage. At 2:30 p.m., just 3 minutes after Grant's order, something extraordinary began to happen. The Confederate lines, which had held for nearly 10 months, began to fragment simultaneously at multiple points. Catton discovered in Confederate reports that they couldn't understand what was happening. How could an attack be so coordinated and so fast? He found a letter from a Confederate officer written days after the battle here. He admitted, "Grant didn't give us time to reorganize or even retreat properly." Catton never imagined that discovery would lead him to completely rewrite his understanding of military leadership. Those 25 minutes at Petersburg weren't about tactics. They were about the psychology of instant decision. It was 3:45 a.m. when Bruce Catton finally grasped the true meaning of those 25 minutes. He was at his desk, surrounded by documents, when the epiphany hit him like lightning. Grant hadn't just attacked Petersburg quickly. He had completely reinvented the concept of decisive leadership. Catton realized that true leaders aren't the ones who make perfect plans. They are the ones who turn opportunities into victories through the speed of action. He discovered something even more extraordinary in Union soldiers' diaries. After those 25 minutes, they wrote about something they had never seen before. "General Grant made us attack so fast the rebels didn't even have time to prepare," noted an Illinois soldier. Catton understood that those 25 minutes weren't just a battle. They were the moment Grant demonstrated his ability to transform instinct into victory. This discovery began to connect dots that no one had seen before. Those 25 minutes explained everything that came after. The fall of Richmond in 24 hours, the relentless pursuit of Lee, the surrender at Appomattox in just 7 days. Grant had become psychologically unstoppable because he had perfected the art of instant decision. When Catton began sharing his discovery, the reaction was total shock. Catton's discovery of the 25 minutes at Petersburg faced initial skepticism from the historical community. How could such a brief period be so defining? Catton knew he needed more evidence. He returned to the archives with a new purpose. This time, he wasn't looking for Grant. He was looking for the ripple effects of those 25 minutes in everything that came after. What he found completely validated his theory. In reports on the fall of Richmond, Catton found direct references to the speed of Grant's decision. "Since Petersburg, the general acts with a certainty we've never seen before," one officer wrote. "It's as if he knows the war could end at any moment." Even more revealing were the Confederate documents Catton discovered. Jefferson Davis had ordered his generals to specifically study the 25 minutes at Petersburg. "We need to understand how Grant managed to break lines that held for 10 months in less than half an hour," a Confederate military order read. Catton found diaries of Confederate soldiers that confirmed the psychological impact. "After Petersburg, we knew we were facing a different kind of war," one rebel officer wrote. "Grant didn't even give us time to breathe." The most impressive evidence came from an unexpected source, the Army's own supply reports. After the 25 minutes at Petersburg, Union Army ammunition requests increased dramatically. The soldiers weren't just fighting better, they believed the final victory was near. Catton discovered that Grant had developed a new command philosophy based on those 25 minutes. In later letters to his wife Julia, Grant wrote about, "The moment I realized that speed of decision is worth more than perfection of planning." This philosophy would become the foundation of the Union's final victory. Catton had found the DNA of the mindset that ended the American Civil War. When Catton finally published his discovery in Grant Takes Command, the historical community was stunned. Historians who had studied Grant for decades realized they had missed the most defining moment of his entire military career. "I spent 30 years looking for Grant's secret in the big campaigns," Catton admitted years later. But the real Grant was hidden in 25 minutes of instant decision that everyone had considered just another battle. That discovery transformed not only Catton's career, but all of modern military leadership understanding. He had proven that moments of opportunity don't wait for perfect plans. They reward leaders who act decisively. Today, in military academies around the world, Grant's 25 minutes at Petersburg are studied as the perfect example of instant leadership. Executives, politicians, athletes, they all study that moment when Grant chose to attack while others were still evaluating. The lesson transcended war, how to turn opportunity into victory through speed of decision. Catton spent the rest of his career exploring the implications of that discovery. He had found definitive proof that Grant wasn't just determined. He had developed a completely new mindset about what's possible when you act at the exact moment of opportunity. In his last interviews before his death in 1978, Catton often said that those 25 minutes at Petersburg taught him more about leadership than decades of academic study. Grant had discovered something that transcended war: how to become unstoppable through the absolute refusal to hesitate when opportunity presents itself. Catton visited Petersburg dozens of times after his discovery. He used to stand in the exact spot where Grant gave that impossible order, trying to feel what the general had felt in those crucial 25 minutes. Grant was not a traditional military genius, Catton wrote in his memoirs. He was something much rarer, a man who had discovered how to turn opportunity into victory through the absolute speed of decision. That 87-word telegram that Catton discovered in 1963 is still preserved in the National Archives, but its true importance isn't in the paper. It's in the lesson Catton extracted from it: that true leaders are not defined by their perfect plans, but by how they respond at the exact moment opportunity presents itself. Grant proved he was unstoppable in 25 minutes. Catton proved he was a genius by discovering those 25 minutes. And us, we have the opportunity to apply this transformative lesson to our own lives. Because we all have our own 25 minutes coming. The question is, when they arrive, will you hesitate like everyone else, or will you act like Grant?